Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show, another exciting guest. Today, we're going to go into one woman's destiny to transform the way women approach the word empowerment. And the way she's doing it is very unique. I follow her on her social media journey, and she's always smiling, but at the same time, she's empowering women through, check this out, comedy and improv. Usually when I go to a comedy show, I'm not looking to be empowered, but this is kind of new, and she's here to tell us exactly the reason behind comedy and the word improv. I'd like to welcome to the show Miss Comedy herself, Jill Pavlov. Did I get it right?
You got it, Andre. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Pavlov, comedian and copywriter. So I am a marketer by trade and a comedian by heart, I would say. And I'm currently on a journey to combine both of those things to help women really find their voice and step into their power. I started my first improv class when I was in 5th grade. And it has helped me to be really quick on my feet, but it's also helped me to have confidence even when it's hard to find the confidence. So I am on a mission to help as many women as I can really find their confidence through improv.
You mentioned you started doing improv about the age of 5. Most people ain't even thinking on that level at 5 years old. But what was it like for you as a child? Because when you see you on social media, you know, you're always smiling and so forth. But we know social media is always going to more than likely show the good side versus the struggles that it took you to get to keeping a smile on your face. What was it like growing up for you?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in the 90s, as I'm aging myself, women were fed, not just women, but little girls like myself were fed a lot of messages in the media that were really, that we see now, not empowering, to shrink ourselves, to be smaller, to not get old, to not get ugly. These were messages that were driven home, to not get fat, to women in the 90s and still today. But growing up, that those types of things were really rampant, and I just, as a child, kind of always knew that I was never going to be the pretty friend. I was never going to be able to get those roles in the school play of the princess. I would have to settle for being the funny friend. And that's really where my love of comedy started, was kind of as a defense mechanism, knowing that I couldn't be, who I wanted to be. I had to find something else that would make me stand out and make me special.
So
Comedy.
let me go back a little bit. You had to recreate something different than what you wanted to be.
Yeah.
How bad what was the things that you mentioned beauty, and I think that's something that we need to understand. How much of that word did you not fit in? In other words, let me go back. How was beauty defined as it related to you being a female? Because you said you had to be funny versus beauty and cute. Who defined that for you, and how much? When did it really resonate? Because you went into improv and at the age of 5, but let's go back a minute. We used 2 categories, beauty and switching beauty for comedy. How was that how did that even come about for you?
I think, again, growing up in the 90s, we were shown one image of beauty, and that was a tiny blonde woman. We weren't really shown not even just faces of color, but like different hair colors, different body types, different disabilities, perhaps. There was not a lot of diversity in what we were being shown as beautiful back in the day. We still have a long way to go, but I knew I wasn't the thinnest. I knew I wasn't blonde. I knew I didn't have a tiny little pert nose. I have my middle European features. So seeing what was beautiful, I knew that that wasn't me. And I think that a lot of people can identify with that.
So in the 90s, I guess your word of beauty was being defined not by so much your inner structure, but what people saw through imagery on television and stuff. But then with with that even being said, you grew up in a house with both mom and dad, correct?
I did, yes.
So what was your mom's identified with the word beauty and her raising you? Like, did you go to her and say, "Hey, mom, you know, I'm being picked as, I'm not even using the word ugly duckling, but you know what I mean? You're
Hmm.
not able to get to these things." How was that related to your mom? How did she come at you to say this isn't how beauty is being defined?
I don't think it's something I ever thought to bring up with my parents. I think I just accepted it as reality. It's not something I ever really had a conversation about. It's just something that I really buried deep within myself, this like deep seated self hatred and lack of self worth that really all started mostly because I didn't think I was beautiful enough, even as a child. Um, and so, yeah, it was just something that really got buried and it festered. And finally, when I was 16, it emerged as an absolutely raging eating disorder that I suffered through for 17 years, almost half of my life. Um, and it's something that I'm glad that I went through because now I can take everything that I've learned and hopefully uplift other people. But man, it was rough.
What would you, 17 years old, then it started to trigger? What were some of those things that triggered? Because you're still trying to, I get it to a point. I'm trying to understand because that's, you know, when you don't know, you ask. You know, this
Yeah.
is your journey, but that seems almost suicidal. I hate to use
Mhm.
that word. That at such a young age and now 17, you kind of like get rid of the word beauty and started to just be funny. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I mean, the goal's always there, right? You know, I don't think that I'm someone who ever like gave up on that, I guess I would say. Um, but can you ask the question again? I think I'm struggling with the question.
Like, I get it. You. Let's go back to what you said at first, where you took the word beauty out of the equation because you never felt you was going to be able to fit that mold. So then you switch it for comedy. But reality still sets in place. You're still young. You know, how much of giving that authority away and castrating the word beauty from your vocabulary and replacing it with being funny, you know, how you know, and then you're 17 years old. What was the things that triggered that part of your life to get to basically having an eating disorder?
Yeah, I was going away to college at 17, and I just graduated from high school, and I knew that I did not want to be the person that I was in high school. So I figured that I could completely make myself over before college and be a different person. So that meant, losing weight. The way that I chose to do that was to purge my food. And I did that all summer until I felt ready to go to school. I even abandoned a lot of my theater aspirations in exchange for partying with my sorority, right? Because I wanted to be such a different person. I didn't want to be this loser, dork, ugly theater kid that I was in high school. I wanted to be all the things that now I realize don't matter, but cool and popular and good with boys. And I thought that the person who I was couldn't be all those things.
How many shift changes did you go through emotionally? Meaning the shift change emotionally. You know, we see already at the age of 5 identity with the television in the media in the 90s telling you this is what you should look like. But more importantly, and then 17 years old, trying to fit in even more for college, that the eating disorders come in, how many more shift changes was happening with you?
Oh, I mean, I think that things have constantly been shifting back then, and now there's just so many different mindset shifts that have to occur to get from point A to point B.
Mhm.
And I really think that one of the reasons that I was able to recover from this was really learning how to reframe my thoughts about myself, about beauty. One of my favorite things that I like to kind of reframe is if I'm ever down on myself about my looks, like, and I'm talking even today, if I look in the mirror and I just don't feel like I look pretty today, I say to myself, if I looked exactly how I wanted to look right now, what in my life would change? And usually the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
So I have to remember that beauty doesn't have all this value that I've always put on it. Like, it's a great to have, but it's not going to magically make anything in my life different the way that hard work will make my life different, you know?
How many of your friends and people you came in contact with knew that you were suffering from this beauty identity crisis?
I was very secretive. You know, they say you're only as sick as your secrets. And one of the reasons that I really talk about this so much is because I want to remove the stigma of shame that eating disorders have. It's a very shameful disease. You know, it's not very glamorous to have your head in the toilet. So a lot of people just suffer in silence and won't talk about it and won't seek help because it's too embarrassing. That happened to me for 10 years of my eating disorder. I was completely silent about it because I was really too embarrassed to admit that I was suffering from this. And if we can keep talking about it and get the shame out of it and let people know that, like, this is something that you may not be able to control right now, and you might need outside help in order to conquer it. And that's okay.
Now, are we dealing with multiple phases of beauty here? Because we got an eating disorder that you're trying to combat and that you're addressing, and you're also dealing with, I don't want to call it body imaging because I don't think it's so much body image. I think it's more mental as well, because you're trying to reframe the word that's been plaguing, that started all this to begin with, which is the word beauty. So let's move forward with this. The eating disorder, the mental behavior. What has been the most difficult part of you to deal with? Because you're still trying to understand the word that started it all, beauty, mental. What? Let me go back here. Let me go here because this is interesting stuff for me. Let's start from here. What is your definition now of beauty versus your definition back then of what beauty is?
That's a great question. I definitely would say that back then, my definition of beauty was, you know, a thin body with big boobs and a big butt, long blonde hair, full lips, beautiful eyes, just cover of a magazine worthy would have been my definition of beauty. Now, my definition of beauty, and it's going to sound cheesy, but I do see the beauty from people inside out. Like, if you've ever met those people who just radiate positivity,
Mm-hmm.
that is so beautiful to me. I think nature is beautiful. You know, there's so many different ways that I look at the word beauty and beautiful versus what I did before.
How was relationships cultivated with you? Because you're keeping a lot of secrets in, like you said, nobody knew. How did you gravitate into having sustainable relationships?
I didn't. um, yeah, I mean, I had relationships that I don't think any of them were healthy.
Meaning what? Go a little bit deeper than that, because you were still dealing with your the two issues of eating disorder and the word beauty at the same time.
Um, It's honestly such a loaded question to go back into my dating history and tell you what went wrong, and why they weren't healthy. There's that we would have to take a good 4 to 8 hours for that.
Wow. My next question is this. When did you realize comedy was the way to help your healing process and to understand a new pathway to getting healthy?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that comedy is how I got healthy. I'm really what I'm doing right now with improv is showing women how they can have a voice, showing them that it's okay to take up space, showing them that they can have joy in being silly, showing them that who cares who is judging you? You have one life to live. Go for it, babe. Like, go for it. Stop caring about what other people are thinking, how they're looking at you, because you're never going to be able to control that. And I didn't get into how much eating disorders are about a disease of not having control. But when you realize that you cannot control what other people think of you, you start living your life for you so much more. And that's really what helped me. And that's where I want to help women. When I say improv, we're doing exercises that just take you out of your comfort zone and get you laughing and get you seeing that you too can shine in the spotlight.
When did you recognize that doing an improv workshop was the ticket to empowering other women?
Yeah.
It worked for you, but what are at least three of the things that changed your life that you said, you know what? All women need to know this.
Yeah. I did my first improv workshop for entrepreneurs actually almost a year ago at this point. And it was for a local women's networking group here in South Florida. They knew I was a comedian and they were like, hey, why don't you whip up this workshop? So I did. And just seeing, first off, when these women came in, they looked like terrified. They looked like they were thinking, how can I escape? How can I get out of this last minute? And
Right.
by the end of 90 minutes, to see their confidence in themselves change was just, talk about beautiful. That was a beautiful moment. And I'll never forget, one woman raised her hand and she said, growing up, I was always taught to be seen and not heard.
Right.
And now I know that that's not the truth. And like, that just got me. And it made me realize that women need this.
What are some of the three things that most women have in common as they've been involved in your improv program?
You mean like how they start or how they
start and how they finish? Because you said the one lady came in and you thought it was really that she was told she should be seen to her. How many other women have shared these same things? Because there's a common ground. If you have multiple people in the room, we all have a common thread. So what are the common threads that you've been seeing with these women?
Absolutely, imposter syndrome. I feel like every woman that I meet, whether online networking, in-person networking, somehow the conversation always turns to imposter syndrome and not feeling like they're good enough or that they're behind in some way, or why would someone buy from me? Why would someone hire me? I'm just little old me. I see imposter syndrome creep up, and especially when it comes to women in business, because we're still not allowed in all the boardrooms. We're still not taken seriously everywhere. So it becomes a lot easier to have imposter syndrome in that environment. But I think that a lot of women that I talk to and that come to me for help are struggling with this imposter syndrome, even though they're absolutely badasses in their own right.
How do you get them to release that imposter syndrome and be a powerful woman, but still be a woman? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. It's a process. So, my process involves like one-on-one coaching sessions with me where we do some improv sessions and I take you out of your comfort zone. One of the things that really worked for me in learning to have confidence was to channel the confidence of someone that I admire. So even when I'm not feeling like myself, I'm like, all right, what would Megan the Stallion do? You know, and then I'm like, okay, she'd be a bad bitch. So like, let's get on stage and be a bad bitch. So sometimes you can pull your confidence from other people. It's baby steps, you know.
You mentioned Megan Stallion. That's who you get your
That,
energy from?
that's who I get all my confidence from. You know, I listened to an interview with her once where she was talking about how many rooms she went into where they said like no to her, you know, especially as entrepreneurs, as business people who I coach, we hear no all the time. And Megan the Stallion said, she was like, I was already famous in my own head. They just didn't know it yet.
Right.
I was just like, you know, and I love that. It's about being who you want to be in your head. Like you don't have to wait for someone. She didn't have to wait for someone to make her famous. She was already famous in her own head. So it happened. Channeling that is so powerful.
When you're doing your comedy, every comedian has that one, they're something that they're famous for when they go out on stage, and they create it for a reason. What do you create when you go out on that stage that you will always be known for? When somebody hears your name and they're going to watch you, what's that one signature thing that you do all the time when you come out? What's your message?
Oh, I don't know if I have that yet. I usually wear pretty funky outfits compared to everyone else on stage. And I'm also usually like the only female or like one of two. So I come out like glittery sparkles, just wearing what I would wear for like a Megan the Stallion concert. And so people see me coming from a mile away.
Your message has touched a lot of females. I know because I follow your social media. What's your end game here? Like, what's your end game with all of this? Because you're very transparent with what you went through from, and let's call it what it is. I mean, everybody's going to look at the word beauty in their own frame of mind. And that's one of the biggest things that women have an issue with. Because of the social media, because of what they see constantly. This is what a woman should look like. This is beauty in its fullness. What's the end game for you?
I would love to change the way that women think about not just about beauty, but about themselves, about their own power. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many powerful women in this world and they're just afraid to put it out there for whatever reason. I see myself, you know, speaking on stages. I would love to travel and do these workshops all over the country, all over the world, and just show women the best version of themselves.
How can the viewers reach out to you, know more about everything that you're doing? Because you're all over social media. How can the viewers reach out to you?
Yeah, come hang out with me on Instagram. I'm at Comedy Jill. You can search for me on LinkedIn too, Jill Pavlov. I'm so happy to connect.
You better spell your last name so people understand how, because it's not spelled the way that it sounds.
It's Pavlov, Pavlov.
Jill, thank you so much for taking a few minutes of your time to come and share such an impactful story and stuff. Definitely want you to come back and tell us more things that you're doing in the comedy world and what you're doing to actually keep empowering women all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.